G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle, and today's episode I'm going to be reviewing, in some part, the Horus Heresy 2nd edition of the game, and specifically I'm going to be looking at the 4 expansion books that have come out for the game system. For a fair comparison, I decided that I should also pick 4 expansion books that came out for the 1st edition of the game, as this sort of has really set the benchmark for what we expect out of the game system. So, first, a couple little caveats that need to be said. So, I'm going to go over the ground rules today. For those who are expecting the kind of in-depth review where we go through unit by unit, this is what's great about it, this is what's bad about it, that's not going to be covered in here. What I want to cover is the quality of the content, just sort of book versus book. And to do this, I came up with a system which I think is fair, but, you know, the comments section is there. You can come in and you can debate on if it is actually a fair system or not. In the comments, we can talk about that. I'm happy to have that discussion with you. But the system I've come up with is essentially, I looked at a few different key areas. Firstly, which books did I pick? Well, for Heresy 1, I decided that I would pick book 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the first 4 expansions to the core game system, which came out in Book 1, Betrayal, which was itself an expansion to the 7th edition, or at the time 6th edition, Warhammer 40,000 rule set. And I've picked the first 4 expansions of Heresy 2.0 as well, in order to match up to this. So the Siege of Chthoniya, the Exemplary Battles in the Age of Darkness Volume 1, the Battle of Beta Garmin, and the Martian Civil War. Now, with these comparisons, I decided that because Heresy 2.0 released its Mechanicum, Custodes, Militia, all those kind of things in their own separate books for this edition, I should not include any of those units' core army lists that were released in Heresy 1. So, for example, the Mechanicum. I'm not including any of the Mechanicum units between books 1 and 3 of Heresy 1.0, because to me, that was when book 3 was the first true official Mechanicum army list, and so they should not be included. The same rules apply to Knight Households, to the Solar Auxilia, and to the Imperialis Militia, which pop up in book 5 Tempest. I'm only going to include new units that are actually new to everyone in the game system. I've also decided that with Heresy 1, I would not include any new units for a new legion that was introduced. So, for example, Book 5 Tempest gave us the Ultramarines. No new Ultramarines units count towards new units that came out in that book, because that would not be fair. Heresy 2.0 gave us Ultramarines on day 1. It would not be fair to compare Heresy 1.0, which didn't have Ultramarines day 1, and say that these two things are equal. That would be unfair. So I have excluded all of those sort of things from this particular list. What I've instead looked at is the new units that are introduced in these books, such as new tank types or new, fully new weapons types, right? So we're not talking about, we have a dreadnought and we gave it assault cannons now. That is not enough. It needs to be a fully new unit type that is introduced later on down the line. A good example of this would be, say, Book 5 Tempest, if you get new word bearers special characters, such as Zardu Layak and the Blade Slaves. That is an actual new unit to the word bearers, which had already a series of units, the Marigal Dreadnought, the Galvorbak, the Ashen Circle, as well as Erebus, Corphoron, the Primarch, all introduced in Horus Heresy Book 2. So, when they're revisited in Book 5, and they got some new units like Zardu Layak, that counts, okay? So I know that's a little bit convoluted and confusing, but that's what it is. Now, missions-wise, I have obviously not picked the core missions out of Book 1, out of the core rulebooks, out of 6th edition's core rulebook for Warhammer 40,000, out of 7th edition's core rulebook for 40,000. Those are not included. It's only the new missions that are introduced in these books. And I'm going to give you a couple of figures here, because I'm going to give you the new missions, but I'm also going to give you the missions that are just copies or reprints from previous books, and that is for both editions of the game. I've also compiled a list of how many pages of fluff are present in each book. Now, the fluff is the background, the lore, the world building, everything that is going on in the game that actually has nothing to do with how the game plays. It's just the fun stuff that we're all into that gives us inspiration. And, well, it's why we buy the books over just printing the rules out in Excel spreadsheets, isn't it? And the last sort of things I covered were the raw page count of each book, so how many pages are in there, that's always interesting, and how many of those pages are art pages, so actual full-colour artistic spreads, because the Horus Heresy is known for these really, really well-done colour palettes from the Forge World era of books. Something that really began, I think where they really hit their stride was probably the Badab Wars. Maybe Vrax could be argued, but definitely Badab Wars, the colour palettes like Carcharodons, Mantis Warriors, they all really stood out to us. Anyway, so into this actual episode. Now, the first comparison I want to do is the very first book that expanded on each game system. That's going to be Book 2, Massacre, which is the first expansion book. So Book 2, Massacre of Horus Heresy version 1. And this is going up against Siege of Chthoniya. So, Horus Heresy Massacre gave us 19 new units. Now remember, we're not including any of the Mechanicum stuff, we're not including any of the new legions that were introduced. This is just new units to the game system. New tanks, new dreadnought types, things like that, okay? So we've got 19 units in Massacre, and we get those units from pages 192 to 224, so it takes 32 pages of the book to give us those 19 units. So that's how efficient it was with the amount of page space required. Siege of Chthoniya gave us 7 new units from pages 204 to 233. So it took 29 pages to give us just 7 units. So not very efficient with the actual amount of pages used. This because Heresy 2 likes to sprawl over multiple pages or really truncates paragraphs. There's very few paragraphs actually filling a page, and therefore it takes more pages to actually fill out the book. And we get an additional bonus here that Siege of Chthoniya nominally gave us 18 Inductii units. Now, you could argue if these are actually true, legitimate new units. That's why I'm giving them as a separate number. If you want to include them as new units in their own right, even though they're just tactical squads or despoilers with a flair to them, then it will take you up to 25 units. So 6 more than Massacre. If you don't include the Inductii, then it's basically 1/3 of the units that Massacre gave us. Now, Extermination, the second expansion for Heresy 1, this gave us 8 units from pages 234 to 244 for a total of just 10 pages for those 8 units. So only 2 of them took up 2 pages. Very, very efficient book. Exemplary Battles in the Age of Darkness, Volume 2, gave us 2 units from pages 92 to 93 and 104 to 105. So it took 4 pages for 2 new units. And that was it. Exemplary Battles, everyone knows, is an awful book. Now, Conquest, the 4th book in Heresy version 1, the 3rd expansion to Heresy version 1, a weird book because at the time we thought we were going to get Prospero, and instead, because of the change to 7th edition 40k, the introduction of Knights into 40k, we had a lot of stuff that was added to Conquest. And Conquest really became this awesome campaign book, and that's reflected in later results, but it's not reflected right now because it only introduced 8 new units from pages 300 to 307. So it only took 7 pages for 8 units. It's a bit quirky how it does that, but when you read the book, it will make perfect sense to you. Now, you could also add, the Knight households, things like that, but like I said at the start, that would be an unfair comparison because they're here from the get-go in Heresy 2. Beta Garment, which was the 3rd expansion to Heresy 2.0, gave us 9 units 3 of which are special characters. And those 3 special characters that were in brackets that I've listed separately, well, that's because they already existed. They were already printed for the game system, and they were printed in the Age of Darkness expansion PDF that was put up on the Forge World, no longer Forge World PDF section. It's now the Warhammer Community PDF section for the Horus Heresy, and in there we had the additional units compendium, essentially. And that Legacies of the Age of Darkness book that it was called gave us these characters already. They got a reprint in physical form in the Beta Garment book. And for these 9 new units and 3 special characters who were duplicated, it took pages 164 to 202, so 38 pages for 12 units. Very, very inefficient, and it bloats the page count for the book without actually delivering substance. So I like to list all the page numbers here for you because I think it gives a lot of transparency to my reviews, and I think it gives a lot of fairness. You can't say that I'm being unfair on these different books if I say that, it's really bloated and they're not efficient with their pages and these books aren't anywhere near as long as they portray. This is how you know that I'm telling you the truth. If you can see the amount of new units they introduced and how many pages it takes, that's a pretty good representation of it. Now, Tempest, the 4th expansion for Heresy 1.0, book number 5, gave us 11 new units from pages 214 to 227, page 244, and pages 250 to 253. So 27 total pages for those 11 new units. That is not very efficient compared to previous books. But in many of these cases, we're talking about vehicles with lots of war gear options and such, and so it's spread onto a second page. Not so the case with Heresy 2.0. They tend to take units that are not very complicated and spread them out because they just basically only put half the words you could fit on a page. Now, Martian Civil War gave us 1.5 new units. And that 0.5 is being pretty generous because I'm including the Krios Venator. Now, the Krios /Krios Venator already existed in the Mars book, the Mechanicum book. And all they've done is give it a 3rd main gun type. So to call it a half, I think is being really generous because I was never that generous when I counted a unit for Heresy version 1. So that's 1.5. And for new units, I've got +6 in brackets because those new units are not new units. They are once more reprints. And in this instance, they are demonic engines that were already printed in an Exemplary Battles in the Age of Darkness book. I think it was the Mat. I could be wrong on which book it was, but it was only a 12 page PDF type thing. It was nothing major. But that PDF with the rules for running things like the Brass Scorpion, or Defiler or whatever. In fact, Defiler wasn't one of the options. It was Brass Scorpion, not Defiler, what's the other one? Decimator, Siege Engine, things like that. Skull, whatevers they are of Khorne. Oh, the names will all come back to me. Khitan, all those units. Anyway, they were already printed for the game system. So all they did was take those existing printed units, put them into this book, and even then with all of those new units, plus taking the Venator with its new gun type cane, that is half a unit, that only gives us 7.5 new units. So realistically, Martian Civil War gave us a single new unit. Oh, and I could probably add an additional +2 to that, actually, because we have reprints of a couple of other special characters, or new versions of a couple of other special characters. We have Camber Diaz and Astacrone and Kaitis Nex. Astacrone has changed from being a... this is sidetracking, I'm sorry, from the raw numbers. I can't help it, though, because it's a weird situation. Astacrone existed, but he went from being a destroyer character to an inductii-themed character, and Kaitis Nex went from being this pretty solid Lone Killer Moritat unit to a weaker version of a Lone Killer Moritat unit, but neither case was he anything to really write home about, because we're talking mostly AP4 attacks here. So it was a bit of a weird reprint and shake-up that went on here. But in any case, it took 15 pages to give us this 7.5 units from pages 122 to 131 and 156 to 164 in the book. So that was our new units portion. As you can see, the total of new units is 46 for Heresy 1, spread out over 59... That can't be right. It was more than 59 pages, surely. Let me check these numbers quickly. Should be 69. Dinner for two with a nasty view. Yeah, 46 units over 69 pages. Whereas Heresy 2 has given us 19.5 and 27 very questionable units spread out over 86 pages. So, yeah, it's actually about the same unit count. 19 and 27 if you include the questionable, and again, 18 of those are the inductii rules. Combine those all together, compare them to Heresy 1, 59 pages versus 86 pages, coin toss, right? Now, let's get into the new missions. So, Massacre gave us 9 new missions from pages 171 to 189, so 18 pages. Siege of Chthonian gave us 11 new missions from pages 132 to 144 and 169 to 181. So, a total of 24 pages for those 11 missions. So, pretty comparable, I think, in numbers. In fact, Siege of Chthonian slightly wins out here because it added all the Zone Mortalis rules, which gave it a few extra missions in there. Now, Extermination in Heresy 1 gave us 11 new missions from pages 166 to 196, so it took 30 pages for them. Exemplary Battles in the Age of Darkness gave us a single new mission, 8 reprinted missions, and it took 1 page, page 95, to give it that to us. So, I mean, it was efficient with that 1 new mission. Take that how you will. Versus the 3 pages per mission that Extermination took with all of its special rules. Now, Conquest. Here's where things get a bit funky, because as I said, Conquest was a campaign system. So Conquest gave us 12 missions. Half of these are Zone Mortalis, half of these were regular mission types. And it took from 166 to 229, so 63 pages. You go, that is a lot of pages for 12 missions. Yes, it is. But that's because there are 5 ways to play each of those missions included in the book, thanks to the campaign rule system. So it's kind of more like 60 missions, but we'll call it 12 bracketed plus 5 is what I've written in my notes. Spread over 63 pages. Beta Garmin gave us 2 missions, 6 reprints, and printed from pages 94 to 129, so 35 pages, mostly for 2 missions and 6 reprints. And then Tempest gave us 9 new missions from pages 152 to 174, so 22 pages. Martian Civil War gave us 3 new missions, 6 reprints, over 109 to 129, or 20 pages for 3 missions. So, how does this work out? Well, it's a bit funky, but essentially Heresy 1 gave us 41 new missions with 5 ways to play pretty much all of those missions thanks to those rules including Conquest, but we won't do a 5 times multiplier on the 41 missions because we don't need to think that there was 205 missions, do we? That's a bit ridiculous. But those 41 missions plus 5 in brackets took 133 pages. For just 17 missions and 20 repeats, so far less, 37 versus 41 missions, without the plus 5 here. 17 missions with 20 reprints in the Heresy 2.0 took 80 pages. So very, very inefficient with the amount of missions that it gave us. And again, I don't think there is much to be gained from reprinting the Siege Chthonian missions in Exemplary Battles, in Beta Garmin, in Martian Civil War, etc., etc. In fact, Exemplary Battles reprinted missions were all just from the Exemplary Battles pamphlets. They weren't even the Chthonian missions. Alright, so now we're through that, let's get into the fluff. So the background, the lore, hey, this is the Death Guard, here's their entire background. Obviously, Heresy 2.0 doesn't give us any of that sort of stuff. For the core legions and their backgrounds and their history, it's very, very scant on details. It's also very scant, well, in general with that sort of stuff. But it does like to talk about the campaigns in each book that were fought in these primary theatres of conflict. Now, Heresy 1 gave us 146 pages of fluff, from pages 10 through to 156. Siege of Chthonian gave us 126 pages, which is pretty comparable. It's only 20 pages difference, and that was from pages 6 to 132 of that book. Extermination gave us 147, so just one page more than Massacre did, and that was from 13 through to 160. Exemplary Battles in the Age of Darkness gave us just 10 pages of fluff, from pages 82 to 92. Yeah, there's more pages in there of fluff, but they're all reprints from the Exemplary Battles that was already written. Conquest gave us 143. So seeing a pattern here, 146, 147, 143. So Conquest, 143 pages of new fluff from pages 13 to 156. Beta Garmin gave us 88 pages of fluff from pages 6 through to 94. And Tempest gave us 132, so slightly down on page count, although it's only looking at one conflict, the Battle of Calth, which only involves 2 legions, Ultramarines and the Wordbearers. The Wordbearers were already explored in depth in Heresy Book 2. So I'm surprised I actually got to the 132 pages. But that goes from pages 14 through to 146. The Martian Civil War, on the other hand, gave us 74 pages of fluff from pages 6 to 80. And the Martian Civil War's fluff, ironically, has nothing to do with the Martians. It's actually mostly, over 2/3 of it, is about the legions and their involvement in the Martian conflict. Take that how you will. So the total page count for background and fluff for Heresy 1 was 568 pages with an average of 142 per book. In Heresy 2.0, and these books are a very similar price to Heresy 1's books, don't forget, we get just 298 pages of fluff, or an average of 74.5, so literally half of the page count as the Heresy 1 books. So we're down on units, we're down on missions, by half in each category, and we're down by half in page count. And yet we're supposed to believe these products are more or less equal. I don't really buy that. Now, the last 2 categories, page count and art pages. So the total page count for Heresy Book 2 was 286. There were 56 art pages included in there, so full colour spreads, pictures of the legions. Awesome. Siege of Chthonian, just 239 pages, 11 of which were art pages. Extermination gave us 285 pages, 51 of which were art pages. Exemplary Battles gave us 111 pages with just 6 art pages. Conquest gave us 309 pages with 47 art pages. Beta Garmin gave us 203 with 25 art pages. Tempest gave us 265 pages with 38 art pages, and the Martian Civil War gives us 168 pages with 15 art pages. Heresy 1's total page count was 1,145 pages, of which 192 were full colour art spreads. Heresy 2.0 measures 721 pages, so 2/3 of the page count, but has just 57 or 1/4 of the art pages. And I think you would have seen through all of these numbers that I've given, which I think numbers, unlike my opinions, are very objective, because the numbers tell you a very, very interesting story here. And that story is one of Heresy 2.0 taking a lot of pages to convey the same amount of information. It has a high page count, but it doesn't use those pages efficiently. It has less fluff. It has less missions. It has less units. It has less art. But it takes up 2/3 of the run length of Heresy 1's first 4 expansion books. And again, pretty comparable on price. yeah, okay, inflation and things like that have all taken place, and, pandemics and what have you have all come along since this whole process began. But I think on the whole, it really goes to show that if you just look at the raw numbers alone, without even examining the content, without going into things like, oh, the Martian Civil War book dropped just a couple of months ago, and they had all these Dark Mechanicum units for Legions Imperialis in the works and didn't include any of them in a book that was all about the Dark Mechanicum fighting the not-so-Dark Mechanicum, because let's face it, they're both pretty grim. None of it was included. It just makes, I could go in an in-depth long review about how good the quality of each of these books is to one another, and I shall, I promise you. But this video is not about that. This video is just the raw objective numbers. If we take these two books side by side and we compare, how much bang for your buck do you get? I think it's very obvious that Heresy 2.0, well, as I've been saying for months, it's a bloated mess. It has a lot of pages that don't give you information. It might only have half a paragraph, maybe a third or a quarter of the page actually has writing on it, and then it's just blank for the rest of the page apart from the background art. And it bloats the page count artificially by doing this. It just doesn't have the care, the amount of effort seemingly put into creating these works as they did in Heresy 1.0. And I think that's really the sort of thing that, well, it's a shame. It's why it's a symptom, as it were, of the problem that I have with Heresy 2.0. It's why I've been creating so little content lately. I haven't had a lot of positive things to say. I've just been observing. And so I felt like I didn't want to say anything. I don't feel the need to come out and just go, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks all the time. That gets very old, not just for you, the listener, but for me as the person who says it. Because this is my hobby. This is my satisfying spare time filler. The thing that I get to do to just relax, okay? And if I'm not enjoying it, if I'm just having a negative experience all the time, why would I want to create content based around that? I don't. So that's why I've been, not putting out a lot lately. I just haven't had a lot to say. And I've been pretty busy with work, so I've been doing a lot of hobby, or I maybe show that. I have actually started to revisit all of the emails that have been sent through for people's units to critique. So that one's coming up. I had done a version a year ago now, but I wasn't happy with it. I had done the video, but I felt that what I was saying was not useful to anyone. It was just babbling raw content and criticism. There was nothing to be gained from it. So I'm revisiting that at the moment, and sometime this year that will come out, multi-part video. It's a lot of models, pictures were sent to me to critique. And I actually want to try and do something with it, say something with it, okay? So, yeah, anyway, that's it. That takes to the end of the video. So this is I think the very objective analysis, just the raw numbers of Heresy 1's expansions versus Heresy 2's expansions. And I think I've been really fair with the criteria. Not doubling up on units, not counting units that, like legions that hadn't released yet, for example, anything like that in either edition. That would be unfair. And what I tried to do was just stick to what are the actual new core things being introduced to the games, the new units, the new missions, okay? And I was really, really objective, I think, in this video. So, if people want to say that my criteria was bad, totally down with it, just pop that in the comments below the video. And otherwise, I've been Mac with the Outer Circle. Thank you all for watching this episode, and I'll catch you on the next video.